So today we begin another year of following this grand, sweeping narrative of Scripture. The Narrative Lectionary, I believe, has an elegant design. Every fall, for about 3.5 months, stretching into Advent, we explore primarily the Old Testament, beginning with the creation story and on through the prophets. It's known as the Hebrew Bible, the story of God told through the eyes of the people of Israel. In each year of the cycle, we cover that same time span, but we pick up entirely different stories. So after we finish a 4-year cycle, we will have covered most of the major stories in the Old Testament. The same narrative arc every year, but different stories to hear and to think about. This year, as I see it, the stories in this season seem to highlight the voice of God, beginning with this great creation story. God's voice speaks the world into being and speaks us into being. Light and dark, be. Land and sea, be. Fish, swim, birds, fly. Human beings made in our image, be. And as the story keeps unfolding, God keeps using God's voice to try to get through to us who are often hard of hearing. I titled this series of worship services, Listen, God is Calling. It will be a listening exercise for all of us as we listen not only to the words that were spoken to the biblical characters long ago, but we'll listen for God's voice speaking to us today through these stories, spoken with a different accent, you might say, a word that lives and breathes in our context. And then after Advent, we will dive deep into one of the Gospels. Last year it was Luke, this year it is the Gospel of John. And very fittingly, the Gospel of John will begin with words that echo today's story from Genesis. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God, and that Word is light and life for all. You can hear the creation story coming through. Well, we'll get to John later and see how this Word, this God's voice, gets embodied in the life of Jesus. And then after Easter, we'll finish out the year with texts from the book of Acts and the epistles. I just wanted to take this opportunity to briefly put today's worship service into that larger context of worship for us this fall as we follow the Narrative Lectionary again. And isn't it a great way to begin a series focused on the voice of God by celebrating our new hymnal, titled none other than Voices Together. I believe this hymnal title speaks not only to the joining of human voices together into a human community, but I believe it goes deeper than that. That when we join our voices together in worship, our voice joins with the voice of God. Singing is divine human communication and a conversation. God's and our voices together. So begins our year together where we listen because God is calling. Thanks be to God.